This is Father Patrick Briscoe.
And this is Father Gregory Pine.
Welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all who support us. If you enjoy the show like we do, please consider making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. Be sure to like and subscribe to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcasts. Father Gregory, I
Have a beard. Wait, what?
do have a beard. How did you know?
Yeah.
Man, this is our first double
Beard-splaining.
bearded episode.
Yeah.
Beard splaining. Plot twist. Well, this episode has been misadvertised. This episode is actually about how I bearded and how you can too.
Yeah, so Father Joseph Anthony and I have been beardsplaining for some time now. Father Bonaventure was part of the beardsplaining team at brief intervals throughout his beard-growing career.
Right.
Yeah, but for you, this is a definitive arrival on the beardsplaining scene.
It is. And it might be definitive.
Nice.
You know, I joked that it was that it would be my playoff beard for the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage.
Okay.
That I would keep it until then. But I'm feeling pretty groovy about beard.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah, I like it. And you know how
I,
sometimes people give you compliments, but they're actually not giving you compliments?
Right.
This is just a compliment. I
Well,
like
thank
your
you.
beard,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Yeah, it's not a backhanded thing.
Yeah, it's not like, I like your beard.
It's terrible, and
No,
I
it's
hate
just-
you.
I'm on Team Beard.
Oh, thank
I mean,
you.
I think I'm on
That's very
personal
nice.
Team Beard because of balding beard.
Right.
But then I think I've become sympathetic to the beard in general, because you'll hear beard hate every once in a while.
Right.
But for non-married men, I think it's I just don't see the drawbacks.
I do find that I've discovered that the beard has afforded me a new source of power.
Yeah.
So I can stay up later.
Oh, really?
I can get up earlier.
Holy smokes!
I can pray with greater fervor.
Tremendous.
I think this is why the church fathers all
Have beards. I think that there's like some mention of beards in Capuchin legislation, and I think they refer to it as austere, manly, and ugly as its principal characteristics. I'm willing to take all that. Just to be clear, I'm not pushing back on any one of those descriptors, but it achieves our evangelical ends, of attracting people to Jesus and away from the beard.
Right. Father Bonaventure won't wear a beard currently
Yeah.
because he claims that he's not living in the mission.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
I agree.
Because he chooses to do what he chooses to do.
Right.
until
Well, he
chooses
doesn't want to
do
live
something else.
online like we do.
Yeah.
We're way more online than he is.
That's true.
So we definitely, in that sense, are more in the mission.
Yeah.
But he also is teaching,
He is.
which is the mission.
He also just might like shaving. I don't know of anyone who does, but he might be that
He
kind
might
of
know
person
it
because he
could
also loves
actually-
following the rules.
No, that's true.
Yeah, he probably feels
No,
a
I think
sense
you're-
of inborn righteousness
I
every
think you're
time
onto
he wakes
something.
and does. Yeah.
Because it's difficult.
So while you and I are jaywalking on Michigan Avenue, he's shaving and walking at the crosswalks.
Waiting at the light.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. Being a Kantian is so hard.
It is.
So we're not talking about a beard this full episode.
No, just half of it.
Just most of
Which
it.
brings me to my third beard point.
Right. We're going to talk about demons. But before we talk about demons,
Yes.
I do want to thank the sponsor of this episode, the St. Paul Center. And our friends over there have asked us to share with you about their exciting project. It's an exciting release. It's not a new project. It's been going on for 25 years, but it's just finally coming to fruition, which is that they are releasing the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible. That is the Bible that so many people have been waiting for. I don't know if you remember, Father Gregory, but we used parts of it in our different courses here at the House of Studies because it was being released in those folios.
Yep.
So you could get the commentaries through the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible, book by book. Well, the whole Bible is finally here.
Nice.
So it's available for pre-order at stpaulcenter.com/Godsplaining/Bible. I don't know what a slash is.
Well, it's like
Definitely slash.
Yeah, you got to squash the slash because
Right.
sometimes slashes kind of get long and kind of assert themselves.
Yep.
And you're like, no, I got to squash slash.
Yeah, squash slash. So again, that's stpaulcenter.com/Godsplaining/Bible. What is the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible? If you haven't heard of it, it is a fabulous Catholic study Bible that features great commentary, great footnotes put together by the best and leading Catholic scholars, including its general editor, Dr. Scott Hahn. It contains 18,000 footnotes.
Nice.
So if you're a footnote person, you probably are because you listen to Godsplaining.
Yes.
If you're a footnote person, you'll love it. And this Bible, I think, is unique because it draws insights not only from modern scholarship, like a lot of Bibles, but also from the Church's ancient tradition as well. So it's I've found it to be very balanced, and I've often relied on it to prepare my own preaching. So again, you can visit stpaulcenter.com/Godsplaining/Bible to pre-order your Ignatius Catholic Study Bible. It comes in leather or hardback. Very
Nice.
nice. The Bible is expected to ship by the end of 2024, and you can receive the Bible, in fact, for free if you become a member of the St. Paul Center All Access membership. So you can
Nice.
join that membership and get the Bible for free, which is pretty cool. Now, the St. Paul Center's Ignatius Catholic Study Bible might help you to come to know the topic of today's episode.
Beards.
Beards. Which is actually not beards. I can't focus him, friends. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to
sorry. Which brings me back to my central point.
I'm gonna point him back. He really wants to talk about shaving today.
No, it's great. It's better this way.
Yes, as says Father Gregory, he strokes his beard.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, and because he stroked his beard, he looked very pensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have found that my beard makes me more pensive.
Nice. Okay, among your superpowers.
More thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's really an incredible thing. No, we want to talk about demons.
Okay.
Not because we really want to, because no one ever really wants to talk about demons.
Except for the people who do.
Yeah, but it's not, we shouldn't, though.
Yeah.
Because demons are not the kind of thing that you're like, yeah, demons.
Right.
That's
actually a good point with which to begin. I think it's
the
like
kind of thing. Like, why are we talking about demons?
Yeah, I think we're talking about demons with a kind of sober spirit in the sense that they exist and they want you to go to hell. So it's good to be aware of their existence and of their activity. But I think that we should probably pay them about as much mind as the church pays them, not more and not less. So we don't want to waltz through life thinking demons don't exist and I'm fine. Should I eat this pile of candy and then do these drugs and then, see what comes next? Probably not, because in thinking that demons don't exist, we might be more susceptible to their temptation, provocation. But nor should we expend all of our energy ruminating on the possibility of demonic intervention because, the Lord is strong and quick to save. So it all falls within the bounds of his providence.
So hear me out on this analogy. I was thinking about this.
Nice.
So I got to go to a couple baseball games this summer.
Tremendous.
I think demons are like Bud Light vendors.
Fascinating. Say more.
Because no one wants a Bud Light. Because it's been ruined.
Right.
But you don't go to the ballpark thinking, I really want a Bud Light. No one thinks that.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Right.
And those guys walk up and down the aisle and they block your way.
Right.
Or they yell things that distract you from play.
Uh-huh.
And now that baseball has that clock rule, which is a thing apparently for baseball people. I don't really know what that's all about. But big changes to
Just
baseball.
keep going. You're fine.
Perfect. So it's quite distracting and you can miss things.
Yeah.
Because the rate of play has been accelerated by this rule change. So if you have the Bud Light vendor yelling, "Get your Bud Light," and then you could turn and you could miss something important in the baseball game.
That's a great point.
So eyes on the prize is your salvation. That's the real game. And the demon is the kind of thing that's distracting you from the gameplay.
Yeah.
It's the Bud Light vendor
Yeah.
that wants to sell you something awful.
Now, mind you, a lot of these things, these concessionaires are regulated by like Aramark or Sodexo, so they have fixed prices, and so they can't sell the Bud Light at a lower rate than the Modelo. But I think to extend your analogy, it would be like,
I like this.
being at the baseball stadium, and you've got people selling various beers of various sorts. Some of them are very pleasant, some of them are very unpleasant. The unpleasant ones are selling Bud Light at a cut rate. In fact, they're giving it away. But you come to discover if you lay hold of one of their chosen goods that it will cost you. Oh, it will cost
And
you.
heaven heaven forfend, as you often say, that someone take a photo of you holding a Bud Light
Right,
and it make its
exactly.
way to the internet.
Oh, heaven
People will
forfend,
know.
indeed.
People will know
Yeah.
that you consumed that beverage.
Yeah.
So the demons are there to distract us. They're not really the thing. They're trying to take our attention away from the thing. So what is it that they can actually do, Father Gregory? A demon isn't all powerful the way that God is. That seems like most people would know that.
Yeah.
But the rest of it might be a little unclear. So flesh that out a little bit for us.
So I like, in these matters, to follow St. Thomas Aquinas. A lot of what we know about...
Whoa. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? I can't believe
that was nuts.
Father Gregory Pine is saying on Godsplaining that
Yeah.
he is interested in what our great luminary St. Thomas Aquinas has to say about this. Okay, anyway. go
Yeah,
on.
I mean, people might suspect me of, following Albert on this or Bonaventure on that, but yeah, shock and awe. Father
really
Gregory is following Thomas Aquinas. So here are my thoughts. What we know about the angels, we know from the sacred scriptures. Obviously, the sacred tradition ponders those scriptures and elaborates, but a lot of it's speculative because angels are invisible. So St. Thomas is very coherent in his treatment of the articles of the faith, and he is able to help you make connections in light of what we know about our own human nature, our own human lives. So I think it's helpful to say, what can they do physically?
Right.
What can they do emotionally, psychologically?
Right.
And then can they do spiritually?
Ooh, very nice. Physically,
physically-
emotionally, psychologically,
Yep.
and spiritually.
And
All right,
spiritually.
go on.
So physically, they can tinker with stuff. So they can make themselves appear as embodied by manipulating the elements. They can also manipulate your sensorium. That is to say, they can make you think you're seeing something which isn't there. That's basically it. There are other things to be said, I suppose, but not in this combo.
Okay, wait. Hold on. I do want to pause on this.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, Padre Pio.
Yep.
Getting beaten up by demons.
Right. So I think that'd be a demon
Yeah.
who is a fallen angel,
Right.
a spiritual creature,
Yes.
just a subsisting spirit,
Yes.
is manipulating the elements, like is manipulating material reality, not itself having a body, but it,
Like causing a bruise to appear.
well, yeah, but like it could be using things to inflict punishment or inflict pain, or it could just be directly applying its kind of power to whatever it wants to hurt or whatever it wants to
Okay,
influence.
all right, I'm with you. All right.
Yeah, but like
Okay, physically.
basically they're powerful, and they don't need a body to interact with bodies.
I think that's really the key because a lot of people might want to say, like, well, how could it be that a spiritual being would have any influence in the material world?
Yeah. Well, it's like they can make things levitate. They can make heads spin. They can do all manner of things. I mean, obviously, the best instance of a spiritual being causing physical changes in our experience is God. So clearly, they don't need to have a body in order to influence bodies. All right? You can just do it directly without the intermediary. That's no problem for God. And in a limited way, it's no problem for angels or demons. So they can tinker with stuff.
Yep.
And then emotionally, psychologically, this is where like the temptation piece comes in. They can propose images, right? And they can even kind of tinker with your moods to a certain extent, insofar as those moods are connected with your body. So like an increased heart rate accompanies fear. Might there be some sense in which they can induce fear by tinkering with the body in the corresponding way? Perhaps. So the idea here is that they can influence from the bottom up. So they can kind of tinker with the bod, and they can propose images, or they can read you really well. They don't have perfect knowledge of the future, and they don't have knowledge of your interior life, strictly speaking, but they can kind of take your pulse, see where your eyes go, watch for characteristic behaviors when confronted by certain opportunities, and then curate for you a tempting
Yeah.
experience.
I think that point's really important, right? Because, you can have, for example, an excellent detective who's able to interrogate someone and is able to know whether or not, the human being sitting in front of him is really the culprit based on that person's reaction. So it's great to understand that what a demon knows is by observation, a lot of it, and it's in the same kind of way that a detective knows.
Yeah.
That the demon is responding to what it's learning about the person. And then I also want to point out to our listeners that you're using two words that I really like, which is you keep saying tinkering and influence, because I think a lot of times, and we'll talk about this later on in the episode, but a lot of times we ascribe a lot more power to demons than they really have.
Yep.
So those are good words because it just asserts and emphasizes the level of influence that they actually have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's something, but it's not everything. Or it's something small, it's not something big. Now, something small can feel really intense, but when we talk about something big in the proper sense, we're talking about what God does, really. So like when you get into then to the higher register of spiritual things, like demons can't read your thoughts, except you express them, whether by speaking them or by acting them or by manifesting them in some way, if there are other ways to manifest rather than speech and act, or apart from speech and act. So they can't read your thoughts, nor can they influence your will directly. Like they can't cause you to do a thing. They might prompt you to desire after a manner by proposing an image, right? By reading where it is that you would like to go and then giving indication that you could go. So these types of things. But whereas God can act interior to you as the creator of your nature, demons can't. So they're never going to coerce you in the strict sense. They're never going to force you. They're never going to push you with such vehemence that you can't choose otherwise. So I think that we said physically, emotionally, psychologically, and then spiritually. Spiritually, you're free, right? Know that you're free. At the level of thought, at the level of love, that is to say, intellect and will, demons don't have access, except the access that you grant, or except the access that you welcome. That is to say, like, well, I'd really like demonic help in this matter, so I will consult a Ouija board, or I'd really like demonic help in this matter, so I'm going to ask demons to be close to me, within me, whatever it is. Then there we're talking about a greater interiority, but that you yourself have given.
Something more problematic. Yeah, and that all lays out the groundwork, right, to be very clear about what demons can't do.
Yeah.
So because they can't read your mind, unless, as you were mentioning, unless you afford them the permission to, they can't force your will. I mean, even God won't force our will, but demons can't force our will. Like, we remain free agents, which means also demons can't make us abandon the faith, which is an important point to make, because the faith is, in fact, the most precious thing that we have. It's our light, it's our hope, it's our joy, and we can always cling to the faith. And I think that a lot of us, when we think about the contest of the spiritual life, you start growing in the spiritual life, you feel like there's more to lose now, because you become heightened to spiritual realities, or you're sensitive to the fact that the church believes in spiritual warfare, that it's biblical, as you pointed out, that we understand the demons are fallen angels, that all of this is kind of going around, that there's this war between the principalities and powers. Okay, so a lot of that can be really alarming, but then you realize, oh, none of these things can make me lose my faith. That my faith will always be a bedrock for me, something that these powers won't make me abandon. It's the thing that I can cling to. And the holy martyrs are a great witness of this.
Yep.
How, regardless of whatever's going around you, you can continue, and should continue, ought to continue, please God, will continue to cling to your faith.
Yep. So I think for me, the related doctrine that comes through very clearly in that affirmation is the doctrine of providence. I think when we talk about what can demons do or what can't demons do, we're always talking about what God does. We're talking about what God wills or permits, right? So this all takes place within the bounds of God's providence.
Right.
We don't profess a belief in a good God and an evil God, and they are in constant struggle until such time as the world is consumed in a great conflagration. We believe in a good God, period. That's a full statement. We believe that God created angels, that some of them fell, that they live in rebellion, but we also believe that God will use their rebellion and their demonic activity for our betterment, right? For our salvation. So St. Augustine will say, God doesn't let any evil happen, except he bring forth from it some good. That doesn't mean that God needs the evil in order to get the good, but it means that God is a good orchestrator of reality, such that even if things leave in one sense, he brings them back in another. So I think it's like, you can always have confidence that not only that God is stronger, but that God is strong, period, and nothing is strong by comparison. And then you can see, all right, maybe there's some demonic activity, but this demonic activity is never such that it falls outside of the bounds of God's care, his concern, his solicitude, his love, his provision for me, which is always present. So that's like the providence of God, I think, is a huge, huge point on this particular score. I love reading. This is an overly long point, so I won't develop it. But when you get into Matthew's parables, he'll talk about the wheat and the tares. And so master sends servants, they sow good seed, and then an enemy comes, he sows bad seed. They grow up together, and the servants are like, what in the world happened? One thing I love about that parable is that it says, at the time when men sleep, the enemy came. It doesn't say that the master sleeps. The master doesn't sleep. So the master sees, the master knows, the master permits. Because then when the master says who did this, he doesn't infer or conjecture. He says an enemy has done this because he knows, because he sees, he knows, and he permits. And then he lets them grow up together, not because he's like rats. The devil does bad things and I have no control of it. But it's because such is the grace of God that he can make tares become wheat. Like God can transform whatever evil transpires in this world so that it redounds to the good. Now, the demons are always going to be demons. Their choice is irreformable, but their activity in our life can become an occasion of good. Right,
and I want to talk to you about that point, because sometimes people will get really, really theoretical. They'll get in kind of a meditative state. They'll start asking big questions about Christianity, and they'll say things like, well, isn't the heart of Christianity to forgive Satan? To embrace every wrong and to afford even the greatest evildoer mercy. Father Gregory, I just want to invite you to respond to that, or the similar question, can the demons repent? Will they always be demons?
Yeah, so the demons will always be demons. And part of that is because of how they know and how they choose. So we know and choose progressively. That is to say, narratively. We're telling a story. So St. Thomas will say that we as human beings come to our perfection as the fruit of many movements, whereas that's not the case for angels. And you think about it, in our case, we've got these bodies. We're using these bodies to interact with reality. On the basis of our interaction with reality, we formulate these thoughts, these notions, these concepts. We refine them in time, make better choices in light of our ongoing formation. None of that holds for angels because they don't experience reality in the way that we experience reality. They have no senses because they have no bodies, so they're not like coming to a better appreciation of what is on the basis of their ongoing dialogical experience. That's just not happening. God, when he creates them, he furnishes them with everything that they need to know and the grace to choose to be from him and for him in the way that he wills. Some of them chose against that. They're not going to learn anything further. There are no other principles which will be brought to bear on their will so as to change their course, to change their heading. So they remain in a state of perpetual rebellion. So should we sympathize with them or express our affection for them? No, in the sense that they've cast their lot and they've cast it in an entirely different direction, or their lot has been cast. But there is mercy directed towards them by God in the sense that he softens some of their punishments. So he doesn't give them their full due or their full share. But their punishment is increased by the perception that even their efforts are undone. So even their evil ministrations, as they try to tempt us, as they try to deflect us from a righteous course, by virtue of the fact that God uses that for our good, the demons are thereby punished more severely or tortured more acutely because they experience their impotence as creatures with greater acuity, which is a deep mystery and not one that I propose for theological meditation at any length for those who find it discomforting. Or disturbing, but it's just to say, there's nothing there that's going to change.
Well, let's pick up that train. People that are getting a little bit nervous in this conversation, like, wow, this is a little dark, guys. I'm a little worried that I'm facing some spiritual oppression and that these things are beginning to affect me. What advice do you have to listeners to ward off demons? We've just said, well, they can do some, in fact, pretty bothersome things. They can tinker with our lives, and we are facing a war against them. So what's the best way to arm ourselves, to prepare ourselves, and to face that evil and to defeat it?
Yeah. First thing I would say is a slight hint of agnosticism. So when things go weird in your spiritual life, that might be from the world, that might be from the flesh, that might be from the devil.
Yeah, sometimes you're just tired.
And sometimes you're just tired. Sometimes you just had like a weird thing to eat that had too much spice. It's like long car trip. Should we have curry? Let's have curry. Never have the curry.
Bad idea. Not a demon.
Yeah.
Just a poor choice.
Just a poor choice. So I would say a little bit of agnosticism as to what's going on because we don't really know because we can't verify. So I'd say before you dial it up and say, this is definitely a demon, we need to call in the demon squad, just like a deep breath. That's not to trivialize that your experience. It's just to say it might not. Now, having done that, I'd say that you can rely upon the providence of God, and the providence of God is always concrete, right? So 1, your baptism, 2, the sacrament of penance, and 3, the most holy Eucharist. So there are natural, not natural, they're supernatural, but there are things about our sacramental life which are exorcistic. So you think about your baptism, there are exorcisms performed in anticipation of the cleansing with water because there's a recognition that you're being transferred from the kingdom of the evil one to the kingdom of God Most High, and that if you're being received into the Catholic Church from the practice of pagan religions, then you might have been engaged with demons. Or, if somebody in your family was a 5th order or 6th order or 7th order Mason, that there might have been demonic things associated thereby. Or in your past, there might be some occult things. It's like, okay, the Lord knows that. He institutes the sacraments aware of that. He gives you these ordinary exorcistic practices to deal with that. So like baptism, the sacrament of confession. A lot of times demons kind of get in there in instances of sexual perversity, in the instances of abuse, in instances of unforgiveness, or in instances in which you directly welcome them. So like unforgiveness, resentment, things like that, or like unatoned sexual sin, you just got to bring that to the sacrament of confession so that the Lord can break up what binds you to it and then get the healing all the way in, get the growing all the way out, because the demons are often meshed up in in the wound, in the hurt, in the resentment, in the anger, in the fear, and all of that. So the sacrament of confession. And then the Most Holy Eucharist. Like, there's one of the fathers of the church says that when we receive the Most Holy Eucharist, we come forth from the Eucharistic table like fire-breathing lions.
I love that line. It's so
like,
good.
We strike terror into the hearts of demons. And that's not to like flaunt or vaunt or whatever. It's just to say that the Eucharist is powerful. So I would say the first gaze then, after having been a little bit agnostic, is to the ordinary means which are appointed for our salvation. But you probably have other things in mind too.
No. In addition to those, and I think that's the most important thing to emphasize, right? Because what is the root claim in the sacraments? The root claim in the sacraments is that Christ has already won the victory, which is the consoling thing. And that's the thing to always be reminded of. So if anyone's engaging in any kind of spiritual warfare, you just claim the victory for Christ. You cry out to the cross and invoke the precious blood of Jesus. Because in that moment, it's a claiming of whatever you're facing by the redemption that Christ has already been victorious, that he's already done this work. And that's what the sacraments are, the extension of that victory that Christ has won into our life. So I totally agree. Those are the bedrock. And it's to say that we shouldn't get too worked up about this because, as you were also saying in God's providence, it all belongs to the Lord. And it's really his, and that we as Christians have confidence, again, in a special way in the power of the cross. Which is communicated to our lives through the sacraments. But in addition to the sacraments, we also have other helps, right?
Yep.
Like one thing that I think people can really benefit from is the use of holy water.
Yep.
And I would hope that now that holy water is back, don't want to trigger you. I'm going to say the word.
Don't do it.
COVID.
Beards.
But now that holy water is back, we should use it. We should take it home, keep it by your bedside. If your house isn't blessed, call a priest and have your house blessed.
Yep.
It's more than just a charming Catholic tradition, right? It's an actual engagement of spiritual warfare to protect the place where you dwell. And in my favorite house blessing, the priest prays that God would send angels to dwell there with you. Like, well, why do you want to dwell there with angels? Well, it's not just a nice thought. It's like because there are other things that might be living there that the angels will drive out.
Yeah.
You want the angels to be there with you. So I would recommend those two things: holy water and a house blessing as parts of spiritual warfare, and two key things, customs that Catholics can bring in their lives, and that will help arm them and help extend the graces of the sacraments. Because, of course, the use of holy water is a reminder of our baptism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then, there are going to be people who have experiences of preternatural things which persist and kind of defy comprehension. It's like lights are turning off and on in your house, or things are falling off the walls, or you hear strange rattling noises, or you yourself detect some kind of mischief in your own life, which it seems to go beyond the ordinary exorcistic power of the sacramental life which you've been living. Don't hesitate to call the chancery. Don't hesitate to call the diocese, because practically every diocese has an exorcist appointed. And he'll be able to instruct you clearly and succinctly in steps that you might take. And that might involve with your local parish priest, who has the power to do some minor exorcism, by virtue of his ordination, working with him, or it might involve working with the exorcist himself. But I'd say that, I think a lot of people's kind of instinct to jump straight for the exorcist is a kind of fear that they're missing out. I think a lot of us in our Christian lives, we fear that we're missing out on max holiness because there's some unaddressed obstacle or hindrance that is otherwise stumbling us up, and we can't conceive of it, we can't identify it, but it's clear to us that we aren't the saints that we ought to be, and so there must be some occult factor here, where it's like the Lord probably is doing Operation Slow Grow in your life in the way in which he's doing it in our lives, and you can be patient with the Lord and trust that the Lord has your destiny in mind and heart, that he loves it more than you do. And so don't just jump for the hidden knowledge or the secret key or whatever it is. You can progress through the ordinary means that the Lord has appointed to your salvation with a certain confidence that he's good and he will continue to provide.
So, for example, if you're experiencing stomach pain, you shouldn't immediately think you have cancer. If you're Father Joseph Anthony, you should probably just stop going to Taco Bell every day and eat a vegetable, and that will probably make your stomach go away. Similarly, you don't need to jump for the exorcist. You can begin with your own commitment to the basis of the spiritual life.
Yeah. And that's actually a cool point is for those who are kind of hypochondriacal about their own health, you probably shouldn't go to WebMD because you're going to identify all manner of maladies.
Yes.
And for those who are kind of made nervous by the
diagnose.
Don't jump on the internet and just find out what everyone's out there saying about exorcism, because you're probably going to identify your symptoms and whatever maladies are thereby described. So I just say, keep it interpersonal. Work with real live human beings. It's perhaps best to stay off the internet on these matters if you're inclined to catastrophize.
Unless you're listening to Godsplaining.
Right, exactly. And then more, always.
Beards.
Exactly.
Well, friends, thanks for listening to this episode of Godsplaining. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. If you'd like to donate to the show, we would encourage you to do so through Patreon. Follow the link in the description. You can also follow the links in the description to shop Godsplaining merch and to get information on upcoming Godsplaining events. We do have an upcoming event.
We're jazzed.
This is the last call for our day in New York City. It is going to be recollected. It is going to be a day. There's going to be an of there.
Yeah.
Best life now. You will love it. So join us at St. Joseph's Church in Greenwich Village. Information about that event is on our website. And we encourage you to comment, on this and every episode. We love hearing what you guys are thinking. So please share your thoughts with us. In the meantime, friends, know that we're praying for you, and we ask that you would pray for us. God bless.
Father Jacob Bertrand.
Father Gregory.
A Dominican, a Franciscan, and a Jesuit walk into a bar. One of them asks the audience to subscribe. That's not a joke. Any ways you can improve upon it?
Just don't tell jokes.
Right. This is not a joke. Please subscribe. Cheers.